Hi there. This time, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a change in direction for the United States. America has been going in the wrong direction for 4 decades now, and it's time to reverse course. We have been misled, and our government has been stolen by corporations and aristocracies who are the enemies of the American people. Now this, of course, as you may know from watching some of my other videos, is the result of Ronnie Rodeo's reactionary Republican revolution. I talk a lot about that and the reasons that we've been going in the wrong directions in other videos, and I'll mention some of that history here, but mostly I want to focus on directional changes which we should be making now. It's time to change the direction of our society. I've got 3 specific suggestions which I think will make a major impact on bringing about that change. The first is conduct people's campaigns. Our political campaigns have been hijacked by aristocracies and corporations seeking to buy power. And recently, even foreign enemies of our nation have started influencing our elections. It's time to change the way we conduct our campaigns and bring the power back to the people. The second is to fund the future. We are still a very wealthy nation, and it is time to use government as it was intended to direct our wealth toward projects which will benefit our people and which will create a better future for all Americans. The third is to bring back the core ideal of the American experiment in human government and the supercharger of civilization, which simply stated is more human rights for more human beings. Now, let me describe in a little more detail these 3 points. Conduct people's campaigns, fund the future, and more human rights for more human beings. First, conduct people's campaigns. All our political campaigns should be by, of, and for the voters. These days, the focus has not been on the voters, but on the candidates. About how much money they can raise and how much television time they can occupy. We need to move the focus back to giving us, the citizens of these United States, accurate information upon which to make informed choices. Now, the problem is that money has taken over. Now, money was always important to campaigns, but the scale has just exploded. And now, most of that money is coming from the enemies, both foreign and domestic, of the people of the United States. Because money is so important to politicians, politicians spend most of their time fundraising instead of doing the people's business. The campaigning never stops. Politicians are always fundraising. Well, here are some practical suggestions for decreasing the influence of non-voters and bringing campaigns back to serving the purposes of American citizens. First, time limits. No campaign should last more than 6 months, and in most cases, a month or 2 is probably sufficient. Number 2, public campaign funding. The government should give the same amount of money to each candidate who qualifies to be on the ballot, and that amount will be tiny fraction of what is now being spent on campaigns today. I am not proposing that candidates run their campaigns solely on the money they get from the government. They can take contributions from voters who support them. You notice I said voters who support them? No contributions to any American political campaign should be permitted by non-voters. No corporations, no foreign governments, no political action committees. Period. And I'm also proposing spending limits and contribution limits. So, with less time and less money to spend, how do candidates get their messages out to the voters? That's easy. Free media. We had this before. There used to be something that was called equal time rule. The equal time rule, and in those days it applied to television, radio, and newspapers. Well, today we need to include other media channels such as Facebook, Google News, whatever, but we can do it. We can give them free access to media so they don't have to pay for it and raise a whole lot of money. So what do I mean by conduct people's campaigns? Very simple. Time limits, funding changes, public funding, contribution limits, and no contributions from non-voters, as well as free media. The second recommendation which I wish to offer to help change our direction is funding the future. We need to use the power of government to redirect our wealth as a nation toward a better future for our children and grandchildren. And I believe there are three important categories in which we need to focus: infrastructure, research, and education. There has been a whole lot of talk about our crumbling infrastructure. Well, the only reason that it is crumbling is that we have been headed in the wrong direction. Before Ronnie Rodeo's reactionary Republican revolution happened in 1980, we were aggressively building new roads and bridges and water projects and housing for low-income Americans and campgrounds in our natural forests and so much more. During these 40 years of misdirection, the corporations and the aristocracies have stolen the money which once funded those projects, and we need to take it back. All right, infrastructure is number one. Number two, scientific research. One of the ways in which the enemies of the American people have stolen our government and our resources has been through propaganda designed to turn the American people away from respect for science. Science is not the enemy of the people, and it is not and never was intended to be an alternative to religion. It is a tool which human beings have developed and continue to develop to advance our knowledge, our technology, and our civilization. It is not a threat to any of our personal values. All right, last area in which we need to fund the future is education. Now, I have a whole lot more to say about this in my other videos, but here I simply want to point out that before Ronnie Rodeo's reactionary Republican revolution, our education system was the best in the world, and it was getting better. Today, we are a disgrace. Our system is underfunded, broken, and unfair. We need to fix it, fund it, and make it fair. So, 3 areas in which I recommend we fund the future are infrastructure, scientific research, and education. Right? I've discussed 2 major changes in direction: conduct people's campaigns and fund the future. Well, the third one is something that I discuss in so many of my other videos. It's so important. More human rights for more human beings. More human rights for more human beings. This simple phrase is the promise of the Declaration of Independence. It is the heart of the American dream, and it is the most important reason for the success of the United States as a culture, as a nation, and when we are at our best, as a shining beacon for all of humanity. The single greatest crime of Ronnie Rodeo's reactionary Republican revolution was this change in direction. For the last 40 years, with some very notable exceptions, we have been moving in the wrong direction of fewer human rights for fewer human beings. Today, heretofore unthinkable ideologies of racial hatred and misogyny have become part of our political dialogue, and laws have been promulgated to advance these agendas. This must stop. If the United States stands for anything, it is the constant advance, generation after generation, toward more human rights for more human beings. The course of our history has been reversed, and we must change it back. Ronnie Rodeo's reactionary Republican revolution must be reversed by counter-revolution. We must change the direction, and we must do it as a people. We, the people, must take back our government. So here are the 3 changes in direction I've discussed: conduct people's campaigns, fund the future, and more human rights for more human beings. Now, those are part of a larger 9-point agenda, which you may explore in some of my other videos. In addition to the change of direction, I'm also recommending a change in the power structure and a change in the Constitution. Videos about these recommendations and much more may be found on your friendly neighborhood internet at www.daffwold.com. Thank y'all for your attention. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you have enjoyed it. And I hope you'll join me again sometime.